Next, we're going to do example 3. I know I'm skipping example 2. We're going to do that in class tomorrow, along with example 4. So, example 3 says graph the solution for the system of inequalities. So now I've got a system of inequalities. So you can see we've got a less than or equal to sign here and a greater than or equal to sign here, which means there's going to be some shading, which means there'll be a region of answers. There's going to be infinity solutions to this. And the way I'm going to show those solutions is by making the graph. So I'm going to start by graphing this first equation. This first equation is a circle. The circle is centered at 0, 0, and it's got a radius that is the square root of 36, which is 6. So, center of the circle is at 0, 0, with a radius of 6. So there's my circle. And now it's a solid line because I have an or equal symbol here, but now I've got to do the less than, which means I need to shade somewhere. Now in the past you might have thought of less than as meaning shading below. The problem is there's no below the circle to shade. The circle splits the graph into two regions, an inside of the circle and an outside of the circle region. So what you actually have to do is you have to figure out whether you're supposed to shade inside of the circle or whether you're supposed to shade everything outside of the circle. And the way you can do that is by picking a point to test. So you should pick a point that is clearly either inside or outside of the circle. Don't pick anything that's really close to the border. 0, 0 is a good option to pick right now because that's clearly inside of the circle. So I'm going to test the point 0, 0. So I plug in 0, 0, and I get 0 squared plus 0 squared is less than or equal to 36. And that gives me 0 is less than or equal to 36, and yes, that is true. 0 is less than or equal to 36. That means I'm going to shade inside of the circle. Since 0, 0 is a solution, I want to shade the part that has 0, 0 in it. So I'm going to shade everything inside the circle. All right, next I need to graph my other inequality. So my other inequality is a hyperbola, and the reason I know that is because I've got a minus right there. So first, I'm going to try to get this into standard form. And to get this into standard form, I simply need to divide by 36 to get a 1 over there. So I divide everything in the equation by 36, and it simplifies to x squared over 9 minus y squared over 4 is greater than or equal to 1. So you can see that the center of this hyperbola is at 0, 0. In the x direction, the square root of 9 is 3, so I go 3 units to the right, 3 units to the left. In the y direction, the square root of 4 is 2, so I go 2 units above the center and 2 units below the center. And I use those 4 points to make my rectangle. Then I draw my asymptotes by connecting the corners of that rectangle and then extend them further. Now I need to decide which direction it opens in. Since my x term is first, that means I'm opening to the left and right, which means that point will be a vertex, and there's my hyperbola. There we go. Now I need to decide what side of this to shade on. So for a hyperbola, I'm either going to be shading in between the two curves, or I'm going to shade outside of the curves. And again, I'm going to figure out which side to shade by testing a point. Again, 0, 0 is clearly in between those two curves, so I'm going to test the point 0, 0. And And I get 0 squared over 9 minus 0 squared over 4 is greater than or equal to 1. And that's 0 minus 0, which is 0. And is 0 greater than or equal to 1? No, it is not. That means my shading should not include the region that has 0, 0. Which means I'm going to shade over here and over here. There we go. So I shade that region over there. And this region over here. Now, there are two parts on this graph where I have double shading, and that's this region right here and this region right here. Those regions would contain all my solutions for the system of inequalities. So there is my final answer. Make sure you clearly indicate which region is shaded darker, because that region will be your final answer.